if that makes any kind of sense.
What
But
you
it,
have to do here, Ray, just to come in briefly on this, what you have to do is to distinguish between the different forms of causation.
yeah,
Much of it, in the social context, is causation by form, not by mechanism. And that was a fundamental distinction introduced by Aristotle in his De Anima, I'm sure, 2,000 odd years ago. And that's again to come back to dear Richard. I call him dear Richard because I've known him for so long. But he just ignores this distinction. He just simply says, "Well, genes are causes," but he doesn't clarify what he means by a cause. I say they are effectively, as sequences, causes of form. It is the form of the sequence that is used to translate into an RNA and then into protein. The DNA itself doesn't do anything about that. It gets read, yes, but it doesn't actually, it is not an active process. And this distinction between active and passive causation is utterly fundamental in physiology. If I measure, for example, the association level between knocking out a particular gene that's responsible for pacemaker rhythm and observe a change in rhythm, maybe 10%.
hmm,
But I also know, as a physiologist that's worked out the full dynamic causation, that the actual contribution can be 80%. The difference between active causation and associative score, which is what the GWAS people are measuring, is fundamental. You can have a GWAS score of 0 and there can still be a huge contribution to causation. It's just that the system is very robust. If one mechanism doesn't work, it uses another one. And that is fundamental here. And it's the reason why most of the GWAS scores are very low. The only ones that are high are the ones that occur for the monogenetic diseases where everybody would agree that if you've got cystic fibrosis, the genes for that, you'll have cystic fibrosis. Not much you can do about it. But they affect only, roughly speaking, 5% of the population. That's not to deny that that's important to that 5%. It is. But for the great majority, 95% of the association scores are so low that they're almost useless for medical purposes. Does anybody go and take their genome to their doctor? Do I go with a great big book of my CGs, A's and T's and say to my doctor, Joe, could you take a look at this? He would laugh me out, of course.